It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind everybody that the Arkansas Voter Guide is out. It is Arkansas Voter Guide. Go to arkansasvotersguide.com to get information about candidates that filled out the Family Council survey. As you can see right here, it's a nice copy. It also had a great letter in it from the Family Council, as well as Jerry Cox to update supporters of the Family Council on their mission. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about that, we have the president of the Family Council. Jerry Cox is with us. Jerry, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, the same likewise. It's always great to have you on. So talk a little bit about, first of all, just talk about the motivation behind this voter's guide. You guys are just trying to educate the people, right?
That's exactly right. It's an education tool. We do not endorse candidates. We don't tell voters who to vote for. What we do is we survey every candidate running for the state legislature and every candidate running for statewide office and every candidate running for United States Congress. We ask them the kind of questions that we believe the average Arkansan would like to know about. We ask about guns. We ask about abortion. We ask about same-sex marriage. We ask about taxes. And, we print the candidates' answers exactly the way they provide them. And we believe voters are smart enough to look at those answers and make a wise choice. And that's exactly what we're trying to help people do.
I think it's really good, and you can find a lot of information from this voter's guide, folks. If you want to know about it, I mean, it's very simple. Just arkansasvotersguide.com, and then you click on list of candidates, and you can look up the candidate that's running, and it's very simple, and read their questions. Now, Jerry, I read the glossy part of the because I got this in the mail. I got this sent to me, and so it came with this really nice update on everything the Family Council is doing, but it also gave, I think, important context as to the history of what your organization has done, specifically back during the Clinton administration. You mentioned when they were attempting to get some sort of sex education into school and pass out, contraception. Tell us about that.
Well, we have a long history, as many people know, of going out to the Capitol. When I first started going out to the Capitol and lobbying for conservative issues, Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas, and he had been governor for a long time. And that place ran like the Clinton machine, if you can imagine that. Mm-hmm. And, he just ran roughshod over just about everybody out there. And so at that time, his health director was a lady by the name of Dr. Joycelyn Elders, and her goal was to put contraceptives in all the schools throughout Arkansas. Treat every high school kid like they're all going to be immoral and engage in all these wrong behaviors and put contraceptives out there. Well, we said, hey, we think schools can do better than that. We think kids can do better than that. And so we opposed that. And as did a number of people in the Arkansas General Assembly. And it was a bloody fight. Bill Clinton sent 11 of his staff members onto the floor of the House of Representatives. Back then, they could go on the floor of the House.
Oh, wow.
And as one member came out and told me, he said, Jerry, they're in there breaking people's arms, and we have to do something. And so we ended up passing a good bill. Not as good as we had hoped, but it really was a lesson for me in just the power that some people can gain if they stay in office too long.
Wow. And the reason this context is important for the how broad your mission is, and I want to get to this in a minute, but there are people now accusing Family Council of stepping outside of their core mission. So let's talk about a 2003 battle, and you talk about this in your letter, a 2003 battle that you had with the nursing home lobby. Tell us about that.
Well, that was just awful. What the nursing home lobby was trying to do to the people of Arkansas. The legislature had already passed a really good tort reform measure. It was good tort reform. Nursing homes came right on the heels of that and tried to do bad tort reform that would feather their nest, that would be a sweetheart deal for them. And that tort reform really had the following elements. It had a provision in there where people could unknowingly waive their right to a jury trial when they admit their loved ones into a nursing home. All those papers you sign, in there, they were going to bury this whole thing of you would agree to binding arbitration instead of going to a jury trial if your loved one was killed or abused in the nursing home. That was one element of it. The other element is what we find in Issue 1, which is a cap on damages that you could collect if your loved one died or was abused in one of those nursing homes. It capped it at $250,000. That was it. And then the other thing it did was it allowed the legislature to set the rules of evidence. It went beyond that, though, by specifying what types of evidence would not be admissible if a person was injured or died in a nursing home. And you know what they wrote in there back in 2003? They wrote in there that medical examiners' reports could not be used in the case of a death in a nursing home because of abuse. You can't talk about what the medical examiner said. They said you can't talk to our staff. You can't use their testimony. You can't use a state inspection report where we've found, they've been found deficient. And they said, and you can't use all these other things out there that would incriminate a nursing home to a point where you could build a case against them. They said you can't use past instances of abuse. Can't bring that up. Well, what just scared the daylights out of us is what would you be left with? Mm-hmm. If your loved one died in a nursing home because of abuse or was injured because of abuse or neglect, and you can't build a case, you have no evidence, then you have no case, you have no lawsuit, and the nursing home skates free. And that's what they were trying to do in 2003.
Yeah.
Guess what, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it again. They're doing it again because they came back during the special session, as you know, and tried to run a bill that would allow people, or make it where people could unknowingly waive their right to a jury trial. They put it in that bill, and they hit it, and they almost passed it. Then they came back, of course, or they did Issue 1, which is referred out to a vote of the people. Guess what it does? Allows the legislature to set the rules of evidence. Well, you know, the same nursing home lobbyists that were out there in 2003 are going to be advocating the same exclusion once they get the ability for the legislature to do that if Issue 1 passes. And so it's same song, not second verse, same song, same verse that we've seen before. And let me tell you, this is dead center of our mission. Mm-hmm. Because how we treat old people, how we treat the least of these that are out there in our society, when it comes to them being able to obtain justice, is in the center of our mission. It has been there for the last 15 to 20 years, and it's going to continue to be there. And I make no apologies for opposing Issue 1 and opposing these attempts of the powerful nursing home owners and others to just run roughshod over little people.
And I agree with that. I think you were right to write the letter and the update. You mentioned how a lot of people just assume you guys are an anti-abortion organization, and you guys are, but you're a pro-life organization, and this Issue 1 has to do with being pro-life. And matter of fact, Jerry, I actually asked a question similar to that at a debate at the Northeast Arkansas Political Animals Club recently between State Representative Dan Sullivan and Cole Peck, because I was trying to figure out which one of them is more pro-life. And Dan doesn't support the tort reform, the bad tort reform amendment that we're going to be voting on. Cole Peck apparently does. And of course, when I asked that question, the whole debate then became about tort reform. I mean, there were just more and more questions about it. It's a very hot button issue. What do you say? You mentioned some of our Republican friends are upset with us. They're accusing us of getting outside of our mission. What do you say to them, and how do we handle these disagreements? For example, you mentioned, these three legs of bad tort reform that's catering to the nursing home industry. Well, State Representative Bob Ballinger was one of the ones in the special session that was putting that piece in the bill that would have waived your right to trial by jury if you signed into a nursing home. So how do we mediate all of this?
Well, that's a tough one. And, some of my friends who support the bad tort reform measure, we've just had to agree to disagree on that and move on. But here's the encouraging thing, Paul. I've had two of my friends in the last week who were in the legislature who supported Issue 1, SJR 8, referred it out to a vote of the people. They've come to me now and they've said, well, I'm kind of having second thoughts about that. We may have gone a little bit too far with that. I'm not sure that I can really support that now. Of course, it's too late because it's already on the ballot, but it's encouraging to see sensible people out there who are looking at this, thinking about it, and saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have referred that thing out the way it was. Because as you and I have both said, I believe, there's good tort reform and there's bad tort reform. Issue 1 is bad tort reform, plain and simple. And so I think more and more people are realizing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stay on message, and I'm going to keep telling people it puts a dollar value on human life. Human life is priceless. We don't need to vote for Issue 1. And I'm going to keep saying that. And we don't need to give the nursing home industry, the trucking company, and big business an opportunity to whisper in the ears of lawmakers and dictate what evidence can be admitted when somebody is injured by an 18-wheeler on the highway, or they die in a nursing home, or a doctor amputates the wrong leg in a procedure, or whatever it is. People have rights, and this is taking away their rights to the past.
Don't you think it's even more relevant now? I mean, I don't think we can have this conversation without looking at John Woods being convicted, Randall Shelton being convicted, Mike and Neal pleading guilty, Orrin Parrish pleading guilty. Then you've got Eddie Cooper, Hank Wilkins, all these people. And what I'm saying is I'm highlighting it's a culture of corruption down there. And if you're following the Woods case and everything, all those moving parts, what you just said, Jerry, to think that these people at the legislature wouldn't be influenced to put in a bill what a jury can consider or can't consider in a big lawsuit against a nursing home. Not to mention, Jake Files got $80,000 wired to his account from a nursing home lobbyist, and we still don't really know what's going to happen with all of that. And Jake Files has pled guilty in the GIF. I mean, I want the separation of powers. I mean, that's something that we need to discuss as well with this, that the judicial and legislative branch are separate and equal branches of our government.
That's right. And, Paul, the things you've talked about are just the ones that we know about. How much more is there out there that we don't know about yet? And I will tell you that the nursing home industry, the trucking company, big business, have already bought enough influence at the Capitol to be able to get whatever they want. Evidence of that is the fact that they pushed Issue 1 out to the people for people to vote on. They have enough votes in the legislature to get that referred out. So if they had enough votes to get Issue 1 referred out for a vote, they have enough votes then to have the legislature limit what evidence can be introduced when there's a trial and get other things once this amendment goes into our Constitution. Because, see, Issue 1 writes all this into our Constitution, and it gives the legislature a blank check then to take away more rights once it goes into the Constitution.
Wow. Well, Jerry, I want to have you on as much as you're willing to come on, especially as we get closer to November when everybody's going to be voting on this. Like you said, there is good tort reform, and Family Council has, not opposed good tort reform in the past, but
we supported it.
We
actually supported it,
and yet this just goes so far that it's taking away citizens' rights, putting a cap on life. And again, tell us when it comes to when Family Council says it's pro-life, okay, define that for us, Jerry.
Well, a lot of people think pro-life just means anti-abortion, and certainly anti-abortion is part of being pro-life, but my goodness, pro-life goes from the moment of conception until the person takes their last natural breath, and it's everything in between. It includes rights for the Down syndrome child out here. It includes old people and how they're treated in the nursing homes. It includes the unborn. It includes, helping pregnant women who have a crisis pregnancy and are looking for, a solution that is not an abortion. It's about reducing the demand for abortion. It's all kinds of things. It's very broad. But at the core of that, Paul, is a belief, a deeply held belief that's based on my religious faith in God, that human life is priceless. Innocent human life is priceless. And anything that diminishes that is not pro-life. It's anti-life. And so that's why we've said issue 1, which puts this dollar value on a person's life that's been taken out of abuse, neglect, or whatever it is. Once you put a dollar value on that way, then you're diminishing the value of that life. And some people want to value some lives more than others. They want to say, well, this guy was a lawyer or he was a big shot, so his life's worth a lot more than this little guy living out here in a trailer on the highway somewhere. And that's simply not true. Every life is priceless, and we need to maintain that. And I think issue 1 flies in the face of that.
Jerry Cox, it's always great to have you on. Thank you so much. God bless you, Jerry.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I'll be glad to visit with you anytime, any place.
All right, we're going to do it again soon. President of the Family Council, Jerry Cox, everybody. We've got to go to break. It's Conduit News Radio. Good morning to you. Back in a moment.